Sir Ian, thank you for inviting us into your beautiful house. 40 years on from the infamous summer of '81. You came into that summer holding the captaincy, of course, having faced the might of the West Indies that spring and, of course, the previous summer as well. That tour in itself, the early '81 tour, was at times controversial. It was obviously heartbreaking as well, with the story of Ken Barrington, who unfortunately died midway through the Barbados Test. And you were 25-year-old, managing as tough a tour as you could imagine. Is that how you remember it?
Yeah, pretty much. We also had the Robin Jackman affair.
Yeah, the Guyana game.
Yeah, so it really just escalated, and but we held it together pretty well as a team. Kenny was a massive blow because he was the old colonel, as we call him. He was very much part of the team, very much involved. His official title was assistant manager, I think, but as far as the team, he was our coach, and just great company. And one of the nice things about Kenny, and this is something a lesson I learnt very early on, you never hear him say, "in my day." Never referred to "in my day" ever. It was always up to date.
And I spoke to Graham Gooch, actually, funnily enough, last week, and he made 100 at Barbados in the shadow of Kenny's passing, and he was quite choked up actually about the memory of Kenny, and it seemed that overshadowed the whole of the tour, really.
Well, I got a phone call in my room. With myself and my wife had been out, and I'd seen Kenny that evening, and we were going out and he was going out, and it all happened around midnight, I think, 1 o'clock, something like that. And they rang me. I was captain, I suppose it was logical. They rang me at about 6:30 because they didn't want it coming from somewhere else. Someone banging on the door, or a news reporter, and saying, reaction to this. So I got up and went with up to AC Smith's room, the team room, and sat there with him, and we ummed and ahed, and I said to him, he said, "Do you want to play this test? Do you want it?" And I said, "Yeah, hang on, look, let's think about the Colonel. He would want us to play this test. He wouldn't want us to do anything else but play, and he'd love it if we could win." And so the players, we pulled the players in, told the guys, and I think just about everybody. I mean, there was a lot of tears shed.
Yeah.
And but there was a lot of tears shed. It started when we all went out that next morning and we lined up the two teams, and the West Indian boys loved Kenny as well. And there was a lot of tears there, and they'd all got to know Kenny. He was that kind of person, yeah, it was a very emotional test, and I think we were all loved it when Gucci got 100. Yeah, it was a massive shock, and with everything else that was going on around us, we did well. And at the end of the day, we lost 1-0 at home, and I think it was, which way around was it? 1-0 and 2-1. 1-0 and 2-0 over the two series because we played them back to back. So consequently, the teams were quite close.
Indeed.
Certain members of the team, each team were pretty close. And again, that's probably why it was magnified by Kenny's death, because both teams, it hurt both teams. So.
Yeah, no doubt. You were in charge for all of those test matches, as you mentioned. You were relatively young, comparatively young in the job, and only 3.5 years into your own test career. And you were playing one of the all-time great teams in the history of the game. Could you enjoy it? Were you fully invested in it? And obviously we'll come to what happened in the summer regarding the captaincy, but where were you against the Windies?
I was learning. I was learning as I was going along, literally.
Yeah, sure.
And you're coping with different situations. Players are all different. That was one of the biggest problems I had. Was when someone drops the simplest of catches, you all go and pat him on the back. Right. I go and kick him up the arse because I just don't get that.
Yeah.
We're applauding failure. Mm-hmm. And that's something I really, really, really have a problem with. And I'll be honest with you, with hindsight, maybe I should have said no. But hindsight's a very useful weapon, isn't it? It's a very easy way out of things.
And you don't say no to that question, do you?
Well, 24 years of age, and you get the knock on the door and say, would like you to be captain? Well, you're not going to say no.
Mm-hmm.
But as I say, with hindsight, maybe if I had said no then and left it for a couple of years. But do you know what? I'm a great believer in you ride the torpedo to the end of the tube. Once you start going, you go. And there's no getting off. And everything that happened, I believe, happened for a reason. And who knows, 81 might not have happened if it had stayed as captain and what have you. So maybe it freed me up. Let me be more expansive.
Mm-hmm.
And also I wasn't having to worry about all the players and how everyone was coping. And look, I probably better off being a sergeant major than being the general.
Okay. Well, we'll come to the general who replaced you in a moment, obviously. Rolling into that summer then, it must have been a relief in a way to be out the pressure cooker of that West Indies tour. And then rolling into the summer, the Australians were here. Trent Bridge was the first test match. You were still in charge.
We should have won that.
And you've said it's before, should have won if you caught your catches. Is that fair?
Well, yeah, and one of my most reliable catches, David Gower, dropped a skyer, and if he'd have taken that, we'd have won the game. And so, but it's all ifs, if only.
Sure.
It doesn't happen like that in professional sports. So they scraped through the Aussies, and to be honest with you, I look at it now and I think, do we deserve to win that game? Yes, I thought we did. But we made up for it.
Sure. If you had won that game, history would have taken a very different path because...
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm quite happy with the path I took.
I can imagine.
Yeah, quite happy with that.
What was it like to play that Australian side at the time? Because you'd have been already good friends with a number of them, right? AB was in there, of course, Rod Marsh, Dennis Lilly, Kim Hughes. These were players who not only you come up against, but who you'd spent some good times with as well. So into that Trent Bridge game, what was the buzz like? What was the atmosphere like between the two sides?
As you'd expect, England and Australia. There's always a little bit of mud throwing from each side in the build-up, which I always find quite amusing. But you're talking about some of the greats of the game: Lilly, Marsh, Border, one of the finest players I played against. Tough competitor, gutsed it out.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think we had a lot of respect for both sides, and I've always been a big fan of Australia and Australian sport. When you think of the population they've got, I think at some stage they held men's and women's hockey, World Cup, rugby league, rugby union, cricket, and probably a host of other games we've never heard of. but they are the ultimate competitors.
Yeah.
They don't know when to lie down, and I think that's why I played the game probably, some would say in those days, in sort of the Australian way, believed in attacking rather than defending. But every England cricketer, every cricketer, when he starts out, wants to play for England, for his country, or Australia, or whoever. But there's something special about England v Australia.
Yeah.
It's the Poms against the convicts. Yeah, and there's a lot of good banter out there, aggression.
Do you see something of yourself in them as well, in their temperament? Do you think that's why you've always worked so well against them?
I've also got a lot of friends in Australia, and do you know something? I think the biggest compliment I've ever had from an Australian was when they turned around, one of the guys, I think it was Kim Hughes, said in an interview, well, he's more Australian than he is bloody English. And I thought, well, that's a pretty big rap coming from an Aussie.
Yeah, you'll take that.
Yeah, but no, I've got a lot of friends over there. Normally spend about 3 months a year over there now, with the wine business, which we're tucking into here. Love to share it, but bad luck. But no, so I'm over there a lot. Great friends, very close friends, AB and myself, DK. I've had some great nights with him in Perth. It's I think nowadays, I'm not sure that the players have the same sort of relationship
Okay.
on the field that we had. Yeah, they might have a drink at the end of a game, but I think boys that are playing in something like the IPL, that they'll all become good mates. But in Test series, I'm not so sure the way it was. But certainly, if we were in the field all day, and you come out and it's 33 degrees, and you're in Perth, and you go and sit down in the dressing room, it's only a matter of minutes. You're taking your wet socks off and your wet shirt, and the Aussies are walking in with a slab of beer, and you're sitting down with a cold can. And when Tomo was playing, you'd usually get a very large amount of seafood delivered with his contacts in the fishing world. So it actually, we didn't need a match referee.
Yeah.
Because if there were anything to discuss, it was discussed there and then.
And you policed yourselves.
And it was put to bed.
Yeah. Even in the absolute heat of battle, there was never any fallout into the evening, or?
No, not really.
No.
No, I think, in fact, we actually mixed quite a lot. Go out with the wives, and Jane and Alan would come out, Kath and myself. One of the guys would be having a barbecue, and go along, and which continued when we came over here. And the Aussies, we'd have a barbecue
on the off day of the Headingley Test.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Some, as you say, pedigree great cricketers there as well, and some other names that we could mention. Coming out of Trent Bridge, despite being one down, were you still reasonably chipper about your team's chances?
Yeah. I thought I didn't think we deserved. We should have won that game. Didn't. And then at Lord's, I went there and I started to feel not quite so happy with myself.
Okay.
Because what a lot of people didn't realise is that the Alec Bedford, chairman of selectors, and his team decided to give me game by game captaincy. So I said I thought about it at the Lord's game, and at the end of that game, I walked straight up to Alec Bedford and I said, Alec, I can't work like this.
Yeah. I
said, my family can't live like this. I can't work and live like this, and the team don't deserve this. And I resigned, which I thought was quite amusing, because about half an hour later, the boys got the television on in the dressing room, and everyone's getting changed and having a drink at the end of the game. And he comes on, Alec Bedford comes on, and he said, well, he resigned, but we're going to sack him anyway. And I thought, well, is that necessary? I thought, blimey.
Not the most tactful approach.
No, but that was what I was working with at that time.
And so your game was obviously marked by a kind of sense of fun and expressiveness and so on, but had that reality of a game-by-game, week-by-week role heading up the England cricket side, had it begun to chip away?
By Lord's, by the end of Trent Bridge, when they started the one test at a time, I thought, oh, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
So I was very happy in the news conference to turn around to them and say, well, there's a bloke called Mike Brearley. I think I might bring him back for the rest of the series. I said, because I think he'll be able to settle the dressing room, and because a lot of the players were on my side upset. There've been a few the other way as well, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But that's fair enough. I don't mind that at all. But no, I actually thought, no, time to walk.
Yeah. Have you forgiven the MCC members for staring into their daily telegrams?
Yeah, I have now. I didn't give. I was furious, and I didn't have anything to do with them for a very long time. But now we've got to a stage where they were actually, when I got my knighthood, they were absolutely magnificent. They arranged everything, and we had a gathering there. Many friends who came down. There wasn't many people left up in the north of England, I don't think, in the northeast of England.
Sure.
And went down and Lord's threw on a magnificent reception afterwards. And then they gave us a dinner for about 30 of us, close family and very close friends. In the evening we came back for that. So there was a lot of bridges repaired. And to be quite frank, John Stevenson and his team at the time did a magnificent job. And I said to Stan, I can't thank you enough, mate, because it was out of the blue. Mm-hmm. I only found out about it literally days before. I think Kath had been involved.
Okay.
Well, I know she was. yeah, so I'm just too old in the tooth to bear grudges.
Sure. And so a week later, you've identified the right person to take over. Thankfully, they've listened to you. And Mike Brearley, the great Mike Brearley, takes control of the side. What was the build-up like to Leeds the day or two beforehand?
Well, the two players probably the most involved in that game, Bob Willis and myself, were... Bob wasn't originally picked.
Yeah.
Breers took over and he rang him, and Bobby said, mate, I'm not playing against for Warwickshire this week to make sure I'm 100% fit for the Headingley game. And Breers said, OK, that's good enough for me. And then when I got to the ground and I stood there, and he walked up to me and he said, he always used to call me Both. And he said, Both, he said, you sure you want to play this game? I looked at him, I said, what? He said, are you sure you want to do it? And I said, Breers, who are we playing? We're playing Australia. Of course I want to play. And he said, great. He said, I think you're going to get 10 wickets and 100. You weren't far off.
No.
Wasn't far off. But
he undercut you a bit on the runs.
But I always remember that game because one of the reasons, apart from the obvious, but one of the other great things was that Bob, the reason they were thinking of leaving him out, the selectors, was because he bowled too many no balls. Well, at Headingley, he didn't bowl one no ball in either innings, and 14.3 or whatever overs it was, he bowled off the reel coming down the hill when I let him come down the hill. And he came down the hill, 8 for 43. One of the greatest fast bowling spells I've seen. And to keep going, but we couldn't talk to him because he just goes into that tunnel where my torpedo goes. That tunnel, he goes there, and he was just focused on doing what he does best, and that's bowling as quick as he can and taking wickets. And he would take the wicket, there'd be a little bit of a pat on the back, and then by the time you look round, he's all halfway back and at the end of his run, almost at the top of the ground at Headingley, and he's waiting for the next Aussie to get out there. And I said to the guys, I said, just leave him. Yeah. Just leave him.
Well, we'll come to the finale in a wee bit. There's one or two other points of business to get to before we get to Bob's afternoon. The Brearley story is just a little glimpse into the way that he worked with individuals, but how did he work specifically with you? And he's spoken obviously very warmly about the benefits that you brought to him on the pitch and off it. That you enabled him to be a bit more freed up, to loosen him up a little bit, to enjoy the game more than he had done in his early years. How did it work the other way? What did he bring to you?
I think the biggest thing that Breers brings to you, he knows exactly what to say, when to say it. And I've been asked many, many times, and I said the best way of describing it is a little bit like if you ever watch Star Trek, Spock. Yeah, Spock, I'm a bit of a Trekkie. But,
I never saw that coming.
Yeah, I was a bit of a Trekkie. But Spock, it was just like Breers was just, you felt like how I think they wanted Spock to be portrayed. Maybe they got the idea from Breers. But he looked, he could look into you, and I think he was reading your mind. And you felt like he was probing. And obviously it didn't take too long up here to work it out. But he did, he got the best out of the players. And I think he treated everyone differently, accordingly. Yeah. And that in itself's quite a massive achievement, to be honest. There's a lot of complicated characters out there, and he was brilliant at it. And nowadays they probably wouldn't even play Breers. They'd say he's not a good enough batsman. But you know what? I'd pick him just for that those moments of magic when he just produced something, and more often than not, his idea came off. Yeah. So, yeah, he's a special guy, and much respect for him.
Do you still chat much?
Yeah, when I see him, he hasn't been 100% just recently, and I'm not working with Sky anymore. I've retired from the commentary box, and so I don't see him as much. Don't see him at the games because I'm not at the games. The only games I really go to now are Durham and England up here in the north. Sure. As chairman of Durham, which I love. I love the job. But yeah, Breers, when I do bump into him, it's great. I love it. Yeah. And Cathgate has a lot of time for Breers as well. He was very good to the family.
Right.
Good man.
Australia batted first in that one, 400 odd for 9, I think, declared. You picked up 6 for though, and I remember on the commentary, because I've watched the video inside out, they were saying that there was a new spirit about your game, and that might be an easy way of summing it up, but was that fair?
Yeah, I think the shackles were off.
Yeah.
I think I was getting burdened, bogged down, perhaps is a better word, with the captaincy, and also with what was going on off the field. Was the kids got abused at school. Oh,
Really?
your dad's rubbish and all this, and Liam got into a couple of scrapes, and he's only bloody this high.
Sure.
And people can be cruel.
Yeah.
And kids in the playground exceptionally, which we've all witnessed and seen in our years, but that was unnecessary, and it was quite nice really just to ram it back down a lot of people's throats.
Yeah.
And I did enjoy that aspect, I have to be honest.
You made a 50 odd in the first dig, but England failed to avoid the follow on, and then I think we were 0 for 1 overnight. I think Gucci had probably had his front pad blown off.
Yeah, Terry Alderman probably, yeah.
Yeah. Famously, most of the team checked out of their hotel, assuming that the game would be done that following day. You walked out maybe just after lunch, middle of the afternoon. 100 odd for 5, I think. Obviously still a long way behind, and soon that was 130 for 7, still 90 something behind when Graham Dilley joined you.
Yeah, picker.
Yeah, take it from there.
Sadly no longer with us.
Yeah.
But no, he walked out, picker, and he came out there, and people don't realise he was a big lad, tall, well-built, strong lad. And he came out and he stood there, and he said, well, what do you want me to do? I said, enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to. Enjoy yourself. Look, it wasn't the greatest wicket. People have to remember this. It was a pretty average wicket. And he had a bit of luck. He had a bit of luck. I had a bit of luck. He played some shots that Graham Pollock would have been proud of. The best knock I've ever seen him play, and I played a lot of cricket with Worcester together. And he was quite magnificent.
It's fascinating how it works like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
One day you play on a different plane to all other days.
The Aussies, he'll nick it. And he did, yeah. Out the middle of the bat to the boundary through extra cover more often than not. We enjoyed ourselves, and there was a lot of good banter out there between us, and we both enjoyed watching the old Aussies getting a bit frustrated, angry.
Was it ever going through your mind? And the scene that I remember is going back to Breers as well, and others, Boyks as well, on the bench, on the balcony, pointing at you to stay there towards the back end of the day, when maybe the mood
was to me.
No, okay.
No, you wanted to saying to Chris Old.
Yes, sorry.
So he said to Chris, and he's pointing at Chris Old, and then he said to me.
Right.
And do you know what? I didn't, because he was playing well, and I wasn't going to make him do anything different or tell him to do anything different, because he did well.
Yeah.
And the Aussies got stuck into him, but he hung in there.
Yeah. 29, I think Chris Old got, which gets lost in the narrative, but without that, there wouldn't have been.
Well, there was a partnership.
Yeah.
A partnership, and it was more time the Australians were in the field.
Yeah.
The pitch is not getting any better, so he did a great job, and everyone chipped in really with the lower order.
Yeah.
Everyone hung around as long as they could. I mean, they were pretty good, very formidable actually bowling attack the Aussies had, but didn't really have a spinner in that game, and that might have been a mistake.
Yeah.
But there again, why would you? The pitch was doing all sorts of, again, hindsight. But
was there ever a moment in that innings, and I think you were 145 not out at the end of that day, but towards the back end of the day, were you starting to think, do you know what, something miraculous might actually be on the cards here?
Once we got to 100 ahead, I said, we're in this all the way. I said, this pitch is not good. And the Aussies, of course, we got rolled out, and then the Aussies came in, and then I got Wood out early on.
Yeah.
Graham Wood, and then they were 50 odd for 1.
Yeah. Needing 80.
And Bob got the end he wanted. And the rest, they say, is history.
You said earlier you can't think of many better spells than that. One element that makes it so much more fascinating and dramatic is that he felt he was bowling for his career.
I think Bob actually, just about every game at that time of his career, with the injuries he'd had, he just felt that I've got to make the most of this, and he was running in beautifully, no balls. It was all there,
Yeah.
A little bit like Phil Mickelson whacking it down the fairway
watch that
yesterday.
last
Yeah,
night?
all
Stunning,
the way
wasn't
through.
it?
But it was like that. It just all came together for Bob, and I think every game he was worried that he's going to wake up the next morning and that's it. The knee's gone. It's finished. It's done. So he kept going, and but fair play to him. He had a lot of painful nights after bowling.
Yeah.
So.
Just going through it then, Kim Hughes nicks off for a duck, I think, and you take him at second slip, and then Graham Yallop, I think, goes for not many.
Yeah, he got caught by Gap.
Yeah, a short leg. And suddenly it's on. I think lunch comes at that point.
Yeah.
And are you regrouping? Is it a case of sitting around having stern team talks, or just
Do you know
cracking on?
We were actually very relaxed in the dressing room.
Right.
We felt, well, come on, boys, got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And Bob was chomping at the bit to get back out there.
Right.
And
have you ever seen him like this before?
not as intense as he was that game.
Yeah.
Not that innings.
Yeah.
No, I haven't. I'll always remember just staring. He was looking straight through me, and I thought, I'm your mate, remember?
Right.
But he was just tunnel vision. All he wanted to do was knock the next Australian batsman over.
Yeah. Dennis Lilly came out and uppercut a couple and threatened for a moment.
Yeah, he had a little partnership there with
Ray Bright.
Ray Bright, yeah, and Gat. I think Gat took that great catch running in, but I think he thought it was a pork pie. But he dived in and took that Gat, and then I thought, right, we've won.
Yeah.
There was always going to be a little bit of resistance down the order because DK wasn't going to block it and hang around, so he tried to be as aggressive as when he plays his best cricket, when he's aggressive with the bat.
Yeah.
And when we got him, I was pretty confident, and then Bob knocked Ray Bright's middle stump out the ground and let it all begin.
What a great moment that was. Bustling Bob's famous interview on the balcony afterwards with the Yorkshire faithful down there, and he gave him the evil eye and delivered one of the great post-match interviews, but I wouldn't have fancied being on the end of it, let's put it that way.
Well, do you know, I think he answered everything. I think it was all one-word answers, as I recall.
Yeah. And did that come from a sense... Yeah, did that come from a sense of the press having given him a hard time and the sense of the walls caving in somewhat?
I think there was a few of us that were pretty... I remember there was the press were waiting for me down the stairs, and I actually wrapped a towel around and just walked straight past them.
Right.
I said, yeah, all right. We all just said the same thing. You wrote what you wanted last week. Well, keep on writing.
Yeah.
But then that settles down. That was just. I think it's probably as much as anything. It was the adrenaline that was pumping through us all at that stage. Mm-hmm. But there was many funny things that happened in that dressing room that evening, because the dressing room attendant, which I think most people have heard this, but it's absolutely true. The dressing room attendant was a young lad called Ricky Roberts, who was South African, and he was 14 years of age, and he was our dressing room attendant running around. And I got on really well with him, and sat down with him and chatted away, and had a coffee. He would make me a coffee in the mornings, and we'd sit down. And as I was intrigued, wanted to play golf for a career, but he said, I love cricket. Anyway, end of the match. So get some champagne, and they said, well, there isn't any champagne in the pavilion. Okay, where is it? So the Australians have got it in their bath, thinking they were going to be celebrating a victory. So I said to Ricky, just go over to the dressing room. In those days they're opposite each other. Mm-hmm. I said, just knock on the door and just say to the Aussies, look, can the England boys have your champagne, because you won't be needing it. And he did.
14-year-old kid.
He went over and knocked on the door. Right. And all I can see was Ray Bright and Rod Marsh, I think it was, as Ricky came flying back through the door. But we stayed mates. We're still good mates now. Ricky, he went on. He was carried the bag of Ernie Els to 3 major titles.
I thought I'd heard the name. That's him.
Yeah, so he was carrying. I see Ricky quite a lot now, and with Ernie, and reminisce about that moment. Yeah, he's forgiven me now, I think. But,
yeah.
He did. He came through horizontal. But,
was a number of pound notes in their dressing room at that point after the famous 500-1?
I mean, we were all a bit peeved that we were out there. I was out there batting, myself and Graham Dilly, and Picker liked to have a little flutter as well. And I said, mate, 500 to 1.
So it came up on the board?
Yeah, it came up. I said, what do you reckon? He said, well, can we stop the game? I said, no, we can't stop the game. And but the Aussie boys had a few quid on it. Mainly, I think, Bacchus, Rod Marsh and DK.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing the coach driver scurrying around to the Ladbrokes tent and then coming back. And then at the end of the match, I saw him coming back from the tent and these pillowcases for laundry.
Full of money. Wow.
Yeah. But we did have one person who had a bet in our team and never told us. And we found out about 4 years later, and that was Bob Taylor.
Really?
Yeah, and the last person you'd have thought would have had a flutter. But I think he had a fiver or something on it.
Nobody's fool, Bob Taylor.
Yeah, and Bobby and do we give him some stick? You know, but
superb.
Did you ever buy that round, Bobby? Yeah, Chat as we called him, Chat. But no, that was a very special moment. And then really, we were on the crest of a wave then, and I don't think we were a bit like a tsunami. I don't think anything was going to stop us from that point on. The boys were itching to get out there. Everything, the whole deck of cards would be. We had all the aces now.
Okay.
The Aussies were probably feeling in control for the first and second tests, but that wasn't to be.
Did you get a sense that the mood was turning in their own dressing room as well? And because latterly, famously, there was a lot of friction between. Hughes, Dennis Lilly and so on.
That actually reared its ugly head up very early in the tour.
Yeah.
But, I see the two of them together now. I mean, there's no problems. But there was an element of why are you captain, why are you here, why isn't... And because don't forget, Packer thing had just come to an end, etc. So there was a lot of resentment. But I suppose that came in fairness, that helped us, didn't hinder us.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the days after Headingley? Were press men at the door, phone running off the hook, all of that?
To be honest with you, Andy, who said he'd drive me down, Andy Withers, a great friend of mine, and looked after me for a few years driving, and Andy, we just got in the car, end of the game, had to go down to Taunton to play the next day in the quarter-final of the Benson Edges.
Right.
Or whatever it was in those days, Benson Edges, Gillette, whatever. And
did you get any? Do you remember?
We won. We crushed... was it Warwickshire? Who did we crush? We absolutely pounded them anyway at Taunton. I think we bowled them out for 70 odd or something. Something ridiculous like that. I can't remember the details. But so we didn't really celebrate it until after the Somerset victory on the Wednesday.
I see.
Well, we didn't get down there. By the time you leave the ground, you've done the press, you pack your bags, you've had a celebration in the dressing room, a couple of drinks. A couple of the Aussie boys came in and had a drink, and when the dust settled, and then you get in the car and go. And we had to drive from Leeds to Taunton. So that was my party.
Sounds crazy.
And actually, I slept most of the journey because I think physically it was just. I think probably it's just like turning a light off, and I slept most of the way down. And then we had a couple of drinks when we got down there because Viv was still up,
of course,
and at the house, which we shared for many years, and a couple of drinks, and then that was it. Ground next day, game. We won handsomely, and then we had a weekend of some cricket somewhere, and then as it was in those days, you'd play until Tuesday night, and then you travel on the Wednesday, play Thursday.
Talking of which, fourth test, Edgbaston, and uncanny echoes really of what happened at Headingley towards the back end of the game. They were chasing 130 at Headingley and 150 at Edgbaston. One of the few test matches without a half century made by any player. I think Breers' 48 may have been the highest. Was it a rough track? Was it turning square?
I think it turned a little bit, but that was more towards the end of the game.
Yeah.
I still think that whenever you play at Edgbaston in those days, the bull ring, we certainly got a lot of wickets, I think, because of the way they intimidated the opposition, the noise. And I remember running in to bowl there in that spell. And as I started the run, it was quiet. And then as I started to run in, it just escalated, the volume of noise. And you could see the Aussies, it did get to them. And but it was funny because Breer said to me, I think you should have a bowl. And that end of that over, he said, you have a bowl at Embers End. I said, no. I said, I think you should give him another over. I said, because you got left-hander in, we want him out, AB, because he would be capable of hanging around. And the very next over, Gat took a good catch at short leg and got him. And then I nodded to Breers then, and so Embers got a wicket and there was out the attack, and I came in, and that was the first time I really got the balls in those days to reverse.
Right.
It was just reversing, and we're not allowed to say it now, but we used to say we thought it was going a bit Irish. So holding it here to swing that way, and like an outswing conventional, and it was just going woomph at the last minute. And so I scratched my head and I thought, what's going on here? Looked at the ball, thinking, what's happened? But it was a very dry surface.
Yeah.
Very, very dry. And that's exactly what it did. And we stopped, we didn't shine it, didn't put any moisture into the ball. And it reversed.
Right. Well. I'm thinking, I think it might have been Ray Bright. You get him with an in-ducker in the pads. You certainly clean bowl Martin Kent as well with a in-swinger. I didn't know that it was reverse. Right, this is interesting.
Well, we don't know what it was.
No, so this is what I'm going to ask you. Yeah. Was it almost kind of an accidental
Well, we'd seen it being done.
That this is how it played?
In the subcontinent, we'd seen it. Because there again, those pitches, they're so dry over there, but we didn't twig it.
Yeah.
And then by chance, it's the first time I was really aware of it, to be honest. And then we used it a few more times, and more so abroad.
Yeah.
Just look after, don't put moisture into the ball and let the other side rough up.
Right.
Naturally. And
in inverted commas, or
no, I'm just saying naturally. I'm not sure it was always done naturally, but certainly from our point of view, that was the first time that, as a team, we'd really seen it happen. Been plenty of stories about it, but never really witnessed it.
When I was a kid and I watched the video, right, that my nan bought me Botham's Ashes, the Edgbaston afternoon, I think, sold the game to me as a young kid more than any other, because it was, as you've alluded to, an atmosphere unlike anything
Amazing
else that I'd certainly seen in English cricket.
Well, it made you feel another 6 inches taller. It really did. They were magnificent, absolutely magnificent, the crowd, and they should have all got a Man of the Match medal.
Were there any doubts on that final afternoon that history wouldn't repeat itself and that Edgbaston wouldn't be a repeat of Headingley, or was there again that sense of momentum building to victory?
I think there was a bit of banter as well out there. You couldn't do 130. What chance have you got with 150?
Yeah, I'd imagine.
So there's a little bit of that flying around. But to be honest with you, you're always wary of the Australians because they are so competitive. Well, we'd won the series by the time we'd done that. That was when we got to Old Trafford. Well, that great battle with Dennis up there.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah. And by the end of Headingley, or maybe it was more established by the end of Edgbaston, but the country at the time, new government in the grip of unemployment crisis and so on, industrial disputes,
race riots.
Yeah,
half the cities were burning,
and this was happening.
Miners' strike.
Yeah,
there was a lot of stuff that wasn't particularly pleasant going on, and I think that the Ashes, that 81 Ashes, it changed my life, but I think it ignited, and suddenly everyone thought, "Hang on a minute, what are we all doing?" And then suddenly cricket became, like a peace ambassador in some ways, and everything settled down and got into it. So it was a weird time.
Yeah.
Roadblocks, checking cars, all sorts of things going on. When we went past going back to Taunton and St Paul's and Bristol, you could see it was on fire, lots of it. The Toxteth up in the northwest. So yeah, it changed a lot of people's lives, and I think certainly my life changed. I think Bob's changed. I think a lot of players that were in that series suddenly Well, they deserve everything they got because it was magnificent.
Is that what sport, when it's as grand and dramatic as that, can do then? Do you think it can take people not just out of themselves, but also imbue them with a great sense of values as well?
Well, I think lockdowns prove that.
Yeah.
Suddenly we've got crowds, and suddenly there's a different atmosphere, and suddenly people... We've got our first game coming up on Thursday at home where we can have a crowd at Durham, and we've got Essex. So we're second and third in the table. So there's going to be a lot of interest in that. And if they get nice weather, which we're meant to be getting at the end of the week, and if that's right, I think we're only meant to have 4,000. And normally I'd be saying, well, where am I going to get the other 2,000 from? But to be honest with you, I am expecting, if it's a nice day, a big crowd.
Yeah.
Because I think people are chomping at the bit to get back and enjoy their sport. And thank goodness we managed to get cricket going last summer, and managed to have football going, and rugby and televised sport. Every household, I think, started watching sport, more so than probably they ever thought they'd do before.
Yeah.
And I think that's the great thing. Sport brings peoples together. I was stood on a stage in Monaco with Mr. Mandela, who I was lucky enough to spend some quality time with, and the most remarkable man that I've ever, in the presence I've ever been in. And he made that great statement, well, sport will break down barriers that no politician will ever achieve.
And that was the sense then around that summer of 81, that it was providing something of real substance.
I think so, yeah. I think there was. And there's a lot of other sportsmen from different sports all started coming along to it and wanted to be part of it and get the atmosphere and the buzz. So yeah, it was special.
The fifth test, Old Trafford, runs against the previous two in as much as you bowl them out on the first day quite cheaply, 130 odd I think, and then are in the box seat for that game, for the majority of the game, for the rest of that game. Your innings, they say a lot. They say that your innings was the purest, most complete test match innings that you played. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, it's right up there. I think there and Brisbane, 86-7 or whatever it was. I think those are the two best knocks I played. I had a great man at the other end, and he's the unforgotten hero, and that was Chris Tavares. Everybody thinks Chris, Noodles does this. He's actually one of the best one-day players I played with. He is capable of hitting the ball, and he's very good at... he was one of the first guys that backed away outside the leg stump to give himself a chance to go over the offside, and I think he watched Barry Richards do that a bit. But Chris was out there with me, and I forget how many we put on, but it was a good total. And I loved it out there with him. We had the old ball, and I said, look, let's just play, and then when we get the new ball on this surface, I'm going to have a go. And
right, so this might answer my question. You were 5 off 30 odd, 32 deliveries I think, so starting quite circumspectly, and then the switch was flicked, and was that the new ball then?
New ball.
Okay. After that, you ended up with 118 in 102 balls, something like that, an 86 ball 100, I believe, which was the second quickest English 100 at the time. Can you talk me through the process of that innings from the moment when that new ball turned
wasted
up?
the first 30 odd balls. I could have done it in a lot quicker time. No, we just had a stall out to play like that, Tav and myself. And I said, stay with me. And he said, yeah, I'm going to try and stay with you. I said, do. And he scored. He probably scored quicker than I did in that period. And then the new ball, and I kept with Dennis, who I respect as one of the greatest fast bowlers of all time, and to take him on in there and managed to put a couple in the railway station. It was special. It was special. I don't think I mishit anything really in that whole innings, and that doesn't happen very often, if ever.
Yeah.
No, it's just middle of the bat. But I was in great form for Somerset as well in between, so that helped. Mm-hmm. So I was getting more and more time at the crease. Yeah.
Could I ask you, that famous over when you took DK Lilly for 3 sixes in a row, 2 of which you weren't looking at?
Well, I never looked at when I looked at. too good looking. The last thing I want smashed up. I did get cleaned up bad. I had a few on the top of the head and things like that. But the worst one was actually against Steve Barwick, who played for Glamorgan.
Yeah.
And I sort of semi-charged it and went to pull it and top edged it straight up here, and fractured 3 or 4 fractures through here. And
Right.
I looked like Elephant Man. And my Kath came down to pick me up after the surgery, and she walked straight past me.
Really?
I was lying on the bed on the recovery room waiting to come out, and she just walked straight past me. And also going up the motorway, I'm in the passenger seat, obviously, and people were driving along, and I turned the seat there, and they were going, "What is that? Who is that?"
Did you? Obviously, you wore a lid against the Windies on a rocky one once or twice, but why did you take so long to end up under a helmet? And when I watched that footage of the DK over, and as you say, you're not looking at it, and it's heading for you
are looking
your
at
crown.
It's not, what you're doing. What I was doing, I'm getting into position, and then I'm you're going under it here, but I can see the ball.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't look at it.
Okay.
No, well, you don't go like that because you're going to get hurt. But no, I knew where it was, and but no, it was great contest, and to do it against someone that you think is arguably one of the best, if not the best. He's right up there. Him, Malcolm Marshall. These are special bowlers, and Dennis to take him on was fantastic. And
was it a premeditated decision to, if he was going to bang it in, you were going to take it?
You don't think about it.
Right.
I haven't got time to think about it. Just instinct.
Okay.
I never thought about it. Good God, if I thought about it, I'd be in a terrible mess.
Right. Okay.
No, just instinct, pure instinct. That's speed as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. It's just I asked Gooch this the other day, and he said that he would know beforehand whether he was going to play the shot or not based on the pace of the pitch and the situation of the game and so on.
The line's important, and the height.
Okay.
So if you want to bowl someone that you think's a compulsive hooker, then you want to bowl it outside his or stump around there, and high, a little bit high. Almost impossible to control it.
Yeah.
Up there.
Okay.
So, but the other thing I remember about that game, and I remiss of me not to mention it, and you touched on it just now, we were talking about Alan Border. I actually smashed his hand, broke his hand in the first innings. Quite a nasty break up here. And he battled it out. Couldn't go, I don't know, many more, 30, something like that, if that. Anyway, he came out to bat when we were cruising to victory. And I hit him on the same spot about after 1 or 2 overs. And you could see it hurt him big time. But he then gutsed it out for something like 300 deliveries for 100 and odd. And that tells you a lot about the guy. Yeah. And I will always remember that innings of his. I've seen him play some great innings, but for sheer guts, that was right up there.
Yeah. In a losing cause as well. And
Exactly.
I remember the footage, he would play a shot and his hand would have to come off the bat because he was in such pain. Makes the 4th innings 120. Was there ever a moment in that game where you were getting twitchy? I mean, the final analysis, they were chasing 400 and plenty and you won by 100, but was there ever a moment when Yallop and him were going? No, I didn't think so.
No, fourth innings is never a great time to bat unless you're on a real road, flat road, which that wasn't. It did a bit, enough to keep you interested. It wasn't. It was probably the best of all the pitches in that series. The Oval, I can't really remember much about the Oval. The last one, that's just a blur. I think we're all knackered, to be honest.
Yeah.
But the Old Trafford one, I think once you won that, it's almost like saying, well, why do we have to play the last test? Because it's all over, Red Rover.
Yeah, sure.
And it was pretty much what it was. It petered out to be a bit of a lame draw. Mm-hmm. But I don't remember much detail on it.
You took 10 for.
Oh, did I?
Yeah. Well bowled.
Well, there you go. I'll dig out the video and I'll have a look. We don't have videos nowadays, do you? Show my age again.
Post Old Trafford, series done, 3-1, 1 to play. What was that night like? Do you remember?
Actually, the family were all down, so we went to a restaurant somewhere. I can't even remember what the restaurant was. Something where we could take the kids, and it was quite nice. I think what I do remember is sleeping like a baby, and it was just everything's gone.
Yeah.
So everything that happened a few months ago in the Caribbean, everything that happened at the start of the season, it was gone, erased from the memory banks, and felt a different person.
Yeah. Did you realise you'd made real sporting history at the time?
Not really. It was quite embarrassing at times. I'd be in the commentary box, and I remember Ben getting the 200 in Cape Town against the Australians, and then he's now. I'm sat at the back of the commentary box, and the two boys were on, and they said, "Well, he's just broken our fellow commentator's record for the fastest double hundred in Test cricket by an Englishman." I didn't even know I had that.
Didn't know.
No, I had no idea. And to be quite frank, it's never really been part. I actually took the liberty. I couldn't remember for some reason. I couldn't remember it was 383 or 384 wickets.
383.
Honestly, I had a look. It's gospel truth. I actually went and
Go on your own cricket info page.
I just thought, maybe it's my age. Maybe it's like as Bumble would say. He said, "I can't remember what happened yesterday, let alone 3 months ago." But I actually had a weird moment there, and I got the phone. I went 383. Okay.
Why does it still fascinate us now, 40 years on? Do you think?
Look, I think you're going to have series. There'll always be great series, and they will always stand out. I think a combination of everything we talked about earlier in the interview, and that was where England was as a country. I think it brought a lot of pleasure to a lot of people who perhaps hadn't had a particularly pleasant time up to then, with everything that was going on. And I think it probably united us as a team, and I think it did a lot to help the country. And inadvertently, because we were playing a sport, and I suppose it's like England win the Rugby World Cup and Johnny Wilkinson drop goal, etc. Yeah, it's special, and those sort of things don't happen every day. Yeah. There's been a couple of good Test series, particularly usually between England and Australia.
It was Brearley's last Test, the Oval Test. It was the last time he played for England, last time he captained England. Do you remember how he left the scene?
Very quietly.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, very quietly. And we all saw each other back at the hotel, but I think Brear's just slipped away.
Classy as ever.
Yeah. A little bit like John Wayne, isn't it? The end of a good old movie, just going over riding into the sunset. Yeah.
I can see that. Right, confession time, Sir Ian. I'm no wine expert. I know what I like, but I'm no aficionado by any means. Talk me through how this came about and what it means to you now.
During the Test series, when I first went to Australia, and when I first went with Bob and Paul Allott, when Paul was there, and Bumble to a degree, not always Bumble, depended what else he had. He loves his beer, likes to go and explore beer houses.
More his style, isn't it?
Yeah, with his flat cap.
Yeah.
In 45 degrees in Perth. Yeah, it's a very good combination. But come the rest day, which you had in those days, on a Saturday we'd have made arrangements and we'd be going to a distillery, a winery. It did go to the odd distillery as well, but you'd go to a winery, and got to know Jeff Merrill very well, who was in Adelaide, Merrill Wines, and became very good friends. We were called the Three Musketeers, Willis, Botham and Merrill. So I've been practicing with the wine for about 40 odd years, and learning more and more about it. And the chance came after when the England team did the Hardy's deal and they promoted it. Myself and a guy called Paul Schaffner who was then brought in to control to make it work with Hardy's, and they appointed me as his ambassador to work with him, and that went on for 3 years, and really enjoyed it. But at the end of the 3 years, Paul said, "Look, I think it might be time for us to move on." He said, "Do you want to start making your own wine?" I said, "Well, how do you mean?" And he said, "Well, we'll source the wine. Then you sit down with the head winemaker and you blend it accordingly." I said, I'd love to do that. And that's nearly 4 years ago now. And I've got to say, it's given me a new lease of life.
Right.
We're in, I think, 16 countries around the world now. And I'm really proud of the wine. Every wine that we've made, we wanted to make it affordable. And I think we've done that with the quality of wine that we've made. All right, we don't make the margin that some people would on other wines, but that's not what it's all about. It's about, I actually just enjoy seeing people when I walk in somewhere and someone's enjoying a bottle of our wine. It's great. Or I see someone buying it in the shelves.
Mm-hmm.
And online, with the pandemic, sales, I think a lot of sales in anything that was online went up because people got, well, what else can I do? Get on your laptop or your iPad and tap it in, and then the next day it's delivered to your door.
Yeah.
And that's the way I hope that the high street recovers, because I'm sure that's put a big dent into a lot of their. You're seeing people like Debenhams closing, John Lewis.
Indeed.
Yeah. So it's a new lease of life for me, and I thoroughly enjoy it. It's, as I was saying, it usually means I'm down under Australia and New Zealand, because I've got the Pinot coming from Maud Winery, which is in Wanaka, in central Otago, and then I've got a few wines in Australia, and we've also got brought that down, but Argentinian wines, and we're going to do some. We've got 2 English wines from Balfour, which is down in Kent. We do a sparkling rosé and a still rosé, English wines, and the portfolio's going on. We've got some Sauvignon Blanc coming in, which we blended about 3 months ago, and that's coming in from South Africa, and that's probably bobbing its way over now. So it's been exciting, really exciting, and you're learning all the time.
What's your favourite? Does it change from day to day?
Yeah, the mood swings. I'm a bit of an all-rounder when it comes to wine. When it's nice and sunny, the Chardonnay or the Pinot Grigio. Rosé is always a good summer drink.
Mm-hmm.
The Sauvignon Blanc, which I made. I'll be interested to see what people think of it, because a lot of people, it's not a Sauvignon Blanc. I said it is, and it honestly is. So we'll see how that goes down. But the whites, and then the top end of the wines, and we've got a Pinot coming out at a level higher again, coming out very shortly. So it's kept me busy. A lot of new friends in the wine business, working with different people around the world. Got curtailed a bit in the last 16 months for obvious reasons, but hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get travelling again sooner than later. Probably realistic, maybe mid-November to Australia. Hopefully it won't be 2 weeks quarantine. Maybe it'll just be 3 days or something.
Are you hoping to get out there this winter then?
I hope so.
And to follow some of the games? Or?
Oh yeah, I'll be there. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'll do that. I might even do a little bit for one of the TV stations when I'm down there.
Oh, great.
There's all kinds of opportunities. I love being down there in Australia, and as I say, we did some charity events down there. We did one when we were last there for the firefighters. There's horrendous bushfires where I think 40 odd people got killed, firefighters, and we did a big golf day there, and that was great fun. And the Aussies, so yeah, I spend quite a lot of time now down there. So I've got that there down there, and I've got New Zealand and Argentina, Spain yet to do.
Yeah. And you're still involved, obviously, on the front line of the game as Durham's chairman.
Yeah.
You've been in the post now for 3 years? 3 or 4 years?
4 years maybe. 2017, I think.
Right. It raised a few eyebrows when you took the job. But you are very much a part of this world up in the north, in the northwest and northeast and so on. Northeast.
There's a thing called the Pennines.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. Right, yeah. Why did you take it on, and what does the club mean to you? Obviously, you finished your career there, of course, your playing career, but what's so special about that particular club? It's one of the most fertile breeding grounds for great cricketers.
Absolutely. And when you live up here in the northeast, it's a question that's very easily answered, because you only have to see the way they support sport. You've got Newcastle United, you've got Sunderland, you've got Middlesbrough, You've got rugby, Falcons. You've got cricket, Durham County Cricket Club. The leagues up here, which is the grassroots, where we get quite a lot of our talent coming into the academy. Look, when we took it over, we were in a terrible mess. But we put together a team, a very good team. I've got a magnificent CEO who I persuaded to come back from Australia after being there for 14 years. I've been tipped off that he might come back, as he's ready to come back for a while. And he's just been a genius at the club, very much part of the club. And it's a family.
Yeah.
The club up there is a really big family. So we've gone from being desperately in debt to back into the black. But we've been supported well. Our supporters are good. A lot of them happily paid their season ticket money and never wanted it back. They knew that it would be going to be hard for us. We furloughed a vast majority of the staff, all the staff, but we were in a position now where we could top it up to 100%. So they weren't getting 80 to 100. So There's a lot of goodwill in that ground. We've got a good coaching staff led by Marcus North, the Australian, played in Perth.
James Franklin as well.
And Frankie's head coach, and Marcus is director of cricket. And we've got some good coaches under those boys. The academy's doing well. We're going to put in the ground's going to change a bit.
In what way?
Hotel going in. Thank goodness we didn't try and build that 2 years ago. We'd have been sitting on it now. But hotel to go in. I think we're hopefully do something with Hilton. All the grounds at the back have been going to be developed for all sport. The girls' cricket is doing really well up there. Mm-hmm. A lot of girls playing. In fact, I'm seeing more girls on the mornings when I go up early. I see more girls coming off the throwing fields than they do the lads.
Marvellous.
But that might change now that the football season's over, because they are fanatical football supporters.
Mm-hmm. It's also probably one of the best seam attacks in the country these days. You know, obviously Mark Wood is the name that everyone will know, but Bryden Cass is a brilliant all-round bowling all-rounder, and obviously Chris Rushworth was in tears last week at beating the record. It was a beautiful moment.
Yeah, wonderful moment. But I said to him the day, and he was saying, "Oh, I can't sleep. I'm nervous about this." I said, "You've got 500 odd wickets, Rushy. You know, what's one more?" Whatever it was, and you know, he's terrific. He epitomises the Northeast and cricket. You know, I think he was released by the club when he was a teenager.
He was, yeah.
And then he came back and he's led the attack brilliantly. He's as fit as I've seen him for a long time. Mm-hmm. Bowling well. We've got the team. Always a good sign when players had left the club when we were in trouble. We all want to come back. You know, Scott Borthwick, who's now captain the side, the red ball side. Cameron Bancroft came over. Beddingham, what a story that is. You know, he got over here and then got stranded. A young lad from South Africa, lived in Cape Town his life, suddenly stranded here in the Northeast. And he was doing cooking lessons with his mum on the computer. So he could cook food, you know, just to keep him going. Yeah. And he sat it out. And I don't know how many runs he's got, 500?
And the rest?
At least, yeah. At least. He had one, two, three. He might be around 600. Yeah.
How far can the club go then? Just on the pitch initially, you know?
Oh no, I'll be very disappointed if we don't win something this year. Right. Whether it's white ball, the red ball's going well. We could easily have won all our games. Yeah. In fact, we've won a couple, drawn a couple, but we've got the big one for us is Thursday when we play Essex. Because there's only 3 points between the two of us, and so both sides will be wanting a tough game. It'll be a tough game, but both sides will want to win it, which is good. And then you've got the big, the Blast and the 100 and everything else that's coming up. So it's exciting times up here. Yeah. Yeah, we've been backs to the wall for the first couple of years. We were financially trying to get ourselves into some form of solvent. You know, that's the youngest grandchild.
Here he is.
Yeah, and so very, very excited. Yeah. Is the word. Great. I really am excited. This year, I genuinely think we're going to turn the corner.
Was it as chaotic as it appeared from outside when you first went in there?
No, probably worse.
Right.
I mean, financially, it was a real
Yeah.
mishmash.
Yeah.
But the people, the supporters, they're the ones you've always got to turn around and pat them on the back, because their loyalty is magnificent.
Yeah.
And do you know what? I think the team realise that,
Okay.
and I think the team now want to repay them.
Yeah.
And the best way to do that is win.
Yeah. You mentioned the Blast, you mentioned the Red Bull stuff. The 18 county model is something that we have to protect, right? Never more than now.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's fair, but I think also we've got to start looking. I think one of the best things it did was taking away the allowance of all these overseas players on various passports and etc., Colpack and what have you, because I think it's important that sides have the majority of the players in that side are wanting to play for England.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see too many overseas players in Australia
Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
or New Zealand.
Okay. Just finally, what does it look like on a day-by-day basis being chairman of Durham? I mean, are you on Zoom calls with other chairmen? Are you
I've been
tapped
during
into the
lockdown.
ECB?
We were all on Zoom calls, weekly. We had a little group, 6 of us, and we'd just basically to keep each other going. I think as much as anything else,
Sure.
and how we tossing ideas around. But no, I do look forward to it. I met some really interesting people. But no, I think on a day-to-day basis, I let the CEO run the club, if I'm honest, because I've got other interests and other things.
Yeah.
But I'm there whenever they need me. I try to get to the games, even if it's just for a couple of hours. I like to show my face and let the team know that. And I am really, really impressed with them.
Great.
I think they're a great bunch of lads. We've got a nice mixture of experience and youth. Banger there, Cameron Bancroft over helps. Experienced players like that, and it can rub off on the younger players.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited, and I think it could be the year. It could be Durham's year.